Welcome to the Appliance Repair Roundtable for January 2022. We are going to be doing a Q&A. We're going to have two sections. And for the first section, which is going to be recorded and shared for those that need to leave early or those that aren't able to attend live, we're going to be doing a Q&A where the topic is fake and spam Google business listings, some questions around them, some perspectives that people have shared. I've picked a handful of those questions and or perspectives from the Facebook groups, and I've brought on a guest, Frank Salvatore. He's a colleague, a fellow marketer. He's the owner of Flex Leads. He, similar to myself, is a marketing professional focused on the sort of local space. Frank, did you want to kind of give a little bit of an introduction for yourself, share who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I help local businesses get clients. I have some contractors, landscapers, concrete polishers. I also have medical professionals like dentists and optometrists. But yeah, the whole goal is to get them more clients through SEO, paid search, and also making sure their Google My Business profile is their Google Business profile is set up properly and is able to hopefully get them leads. So optimization of that profile.
Yeah, and that's, thank you, Frank. And that's a good segue into what we're talking about tonight. We are going to be answering some questions and, sharing our sort of feedback and take on some perspectives that I've pulled from the online community around Google Business Profile and particularly spam and fake listings. And some of the topics around that. Really quickly, just to kind of, I want to recap some of the recent changes. So those that don't know, there's been a lot of changes in this local SEO space or this local marketing space being the Google Business Profile. So you're probably like, Google Business Profile, what is that? You're used to it being called Google My Business. So towards the end of 2021, Google announced that they were rebranding from Google My Business to Google Business Profile. And like a lot of rebrands that some of these larger tech companies do, there are certain implications that are kind of snuck in. And there's, in this case, underneath the veil, if you will, of the rebrand, there's some changes to how you can manage your listing. So for example, the app is going away. And there's restrictions put on to the web portal, business.google.com. They are making that go away for single business or single location businesses. And the way that you would interact with your profile and the way that you would edit everything is going to be moved to the actual search page and the maps interface. I have a video that I shot a month or so ago, giving some examples on what it looked like before. It still looks like this now, but then what it is going to be looking like once they make that transition fully sort of activated, if you will. And I can share a link to that in conjunction with this video recording. Shortly after that, there was an algorithm update. So what that means is how Google, let me see how to explain this. The way that Google decides whose businesses are showing up when people are searching for what you offer within the service area that you offer those services. The way that Google determines whose business is showing up is based on their algorithm. And there was a big update to the algorithm that had to do with proximity. It had to do with stuffing keywords into business names. And that right there is a kind of a fine line topic in this industry, because as we all know, the majority of businesses' names have a keyword, appliance repair, in the business name. That's a whole nother discussion for another time, but point being, that was one of the recent changes, that algorithm update. And then most recently, I think it was a week or so ago, they implemented another change when adding a manager to your profile. That manager can't actually do anything for a certain amount of time. So it's like a wait period. You know, and that the reason why they would do that, I want to say, you could theorize that has to do with trying to combat and fight spam listings, possibly. But either way, it's a little early to tell. With that being said, hey, Frank, did you have any thoughts on some of the recent updates, changes, or, should we just jump into the questions?
I would say, I mean, in general, the algorithm changes are a good thing. I mean, I didn't realize it sounds like most appliance repair companies have appliance repair in their name, and that's great. I reported on a company today in the concrete space where they had just total keyword stuffing. I mean, it makes sense if you're an appliance repair to have appliance repair as part of your business name, but if you're an attorney to have your business, like to appear in Google My Business as dog bite attorney, that's the kind of stuff they were trying to eliminate, like dog bite attorney Denver. That was their goal, to just get rid of any sort of keyword stuffing. And I think it's good. It gets rid of a lot of people that were trying to game the system. So yeah. Overall, I think this is a change for Google business profiles that has been long overdue. So it's a good thing for people that do things the right way. Yeah,
definitely. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and jump into some of these questions and perspectives, if you will. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen real quick, and I've taken some screen captures of various items. So I'm just going to read through, and then Frank will see what your thoughts are, and I'll chime in, and we'll kind of just go from there. So most of you, at least in metro areas, are probably familiar with the dozens or hundreds of fake appliance repair listings that pop up on Google Maps in your area, loaded with clearly fake reviews at addresses that don't exist. I'm aware of what's going on here, and that's a different discussion. What I don't understand is how. It is incredibly hard to get a legit business listing live on Google with all the hoops they have you jump through. So how do these spammers do it, and how do they not get flagged for all the phony reviews? How does this work? You want to take a first stab at that, Frank?
Sure. I think the key thing is that hopefully these algorithm changes put a dent into some of this activity. But unfortunately, I mean, there are a lot of companies. You can go to, I'm assuming, a website like Fiverr.com, where they will help you to set up a fake listing. I mean, there's entire businesses built around getting fake listings up. So that's how they do it. I mean, it's up to Google to prevent it from happening. And this algorithm change will probably help a little bit. It's not going to completely stop it. What you need to do is, when you see those fake listings, you need to report them to Google, either through suggesting a change or by filling out the redressal form and just going for them. Don't feel bad about it. I love taking those listings down. It's a good feeling. It helps my clients, and lots of times those listings aren't, like, I think they were probably implying that in the comment. They're not even real companies. They're just thin lead generation websites. There's no address on the site. They're just trying to game the system.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I would say that, how do they do it? Simply put, they do it the way that everybody else does it. They're balancing between, as Frank said, they create a website or they create a page, they create just enough to be able to pass under Google's radar. Something that we'll hopefully get into with some of the further questions is there's this idea that's like, hey, Google's Google. They're the all-seeing big G. They should know if they're fake. The thing is it's really an algorithm, and there is more content being added to the internet on a daily basis than Google is actually scanning on a daily basis. So it's really just a matter of kind of getting just enough ahead of the game. But to answer the question of how are they doing it, they are simply just creating a listing, and they are getting it verified. So they're going through the verification process, and they're playing the game. They're being patient enough because they're probably getting their listing or their profile suspended right away once they create it. And then they're going through and they're maybe having photos to be able to get it unsuspended, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing that I want to point out is in that question, it was about phony reviews. I want to differentiate. We're talking two totally different things when we're saying a spam profile and a spam review. So I see those terms used interchangeably a lot, and it's really important to note that we are talking two different animals right there. But yeah, I don't know if you got anything to add there, Frank.
No, and I mean, spam reviews are obviously a big problem too. And that's why you need to stay on top of your listing. Like I was saying, there's sites out there and it's not ethical. It's actually, from an FTC standpoint, you can't do it. You can't have fake reviews, good or bad. But there are services that you can hire where people will, give you good reviews or bad reviews, whatever you want. So you really have to stay on top of that. Make sure that if there is a fake review on Google or Yelp or Facebook, you need to address it. You need to flag it. You need to try to get in touch with the review platform, and you need to respond. You need to say, you know what, this was not an actual customer of mine. So you don't need to be nasty about it. Never be argumentative in the review section when they let you comment, but you can't just let it stand, obviously. So that's spam reviews.
So Bobby just whispered a quick question of, have they changed the timeline of how long it takes to get a fake review removed? The answer to that is there is no timeline. And this applies, and we're kind of jumping ahead to reinstatement, so I'll just preview it here. There's a process that needs to be followed where it's like a game of ping pong. If your listing is suspended, or if you're reporting a fake review, or if you're reporting a fake listing, etc., you hit that ping pong ball across the table and submitting a ticket, suggesting an edit, etc., whatever it is, and you just need to check on the status. You might get a response, and then you go back and forth, and it's kind of a war of attrition. But either way, let's go ahead and keep moving on to the next question, which I'm going to share my screen again and read this one. It is about, I believe it's about PO boxes. Okay, so, and this is somebody that was giving it, again, this is the whole question that we're starting with, is how do these spammers do it? How do they create a fake listing? And like I said, they go through the same process that a legitimate business does. They're faking it. And you will, for those that don't know, you need to create a profile. So you go to, I actually haven't tested creating a new profile in the new changes. So at the moment, you still go to business.google.com and you sign up. You need a Google account. And then you go through the prompts of creating your profile, and it asks you for all kinds of information of what is your business name, information about the business, etc. And then when you finalize that, they most of the time are going to say, hey, we need to verify your listing, and we're going to do that by sending you a postcard. So that's where we're jumping in right here. They're saying if you can receive a postcard there, so they're talking, again, fake listings are created in sometimes post office, PO boxes, mail services, maybe it's a friend's business, maybe it's a co-working space. It's somewhere other than the actual legal business address. So in this scenario, most of the time it's a home address, because most of appliance repair businesses are home-based. And most business owners don't understand the landscape around creating your business profile and the implications and sort of connectedness of your business's legal address to your profile's registered address. So what will happen is they create the profile, they say that it's at 7-Eleven. They don't say it's a 7-Eleven, but they use that address, and then they add a unit number 3. And then their friend that works at 7-Eleven, I think that might have been one of the examples, and not in the screenshot, but the friend that works at 7-Eleven gives them the postcard. They go back onto their back end of their business profile. They add the verification code, and sometimes there you go, it's live. So they're saying if you receive a postcard, there isn't anything, and it isn't already listed on Google, you can receive a places listing there. He means Google Business Profile when it says places. Follow up, many of these addresses are banks or 7-Elevens or just empty retail spots. They typically have an address like 123 First Street, Unit 45, like I was just saying. And the way that Google verifies is with a postcard, etc. Let me just check my notes. I think I wanted to use this example to describe, yes, the PO box method. I kind of just touched on that. So let me talk a little bit about, so why are these fake listings not getting flagged and suspended? I want to say that most of these profiles are probably old or pre-existing profiles. And I would say that it's just a matter of time until the algorithm is going to identify these fake listings, flags them. Frank, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first off, the company that I reported today, they were sharing, the concrete company was sharing apparently office space with a Jamba Juice, which makes no sense. So, I mean, obviously they had someone inside at the Jamba Juice to verify the postcard, but Google has been really slow to fix this. And we'll probably touch more on this in a minute, but Google makes money through ads. So they're not necessarily incentivized to prevent this practice from happening until the community complains enough. So these algorithms will help a little bit, but you would think with Google, with all of its computing power, would be able to tie directly into the individual secretaries of states and just really do good verification, but they don't. They send out a postcard or an automated message. It's not a high priority for Google to make sure that all the businesses that have a Google business profile are legitimate. It falls way behind them generating revenue from ads. So, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that in a minute, but yeah, that's all I had to add on that.
Cool. This one was an interesting one. So again, we're kind of following this Facebook comment thread. And these are people sharing their perspectives on, how are these spammers getting away with the fake listings? I'm just going to read part of this one, I think. And Frank, I really want to hear your take on this. So again, how do the spammers create the fake listings, and how do they do it? This person is saying high diversity zip codes. Google has abandoned the human audit factor for new business that pop up in zip codes that are predominantly non-white. This is why urban areas are saturated with fake listings and why they can do this and get away with it for months and even years. This has gotten worse over the past 7 years, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, my take on that is, I'm not, let me just say right now, I mean, my agency is, I have to use Google to keep my clients happy. That's how I get my clients all of their customers. But I am not going to defend Google. I don't view Google as a partner. I view them kind of as a necessary evil. I mean, it's something you have to do. Google's an advertising platform. That would be interesting to see. I mean, if that is true and the data bears that out, I'd like to know what the reason is. It could be people aren't flagging those businesses as much in certain regions for some reason. I don't know. But Google's basically a giant freaking robot. I mean, it runs on algorithms. It's not doing anything intentionally to discriminate. They're just trying to make money quarter over quarter, year over year. That's their sole purpose as an advertising company. I mean, that's my take on that.
Yeah, I agree. The perspective was that Google has abandoned the human audit factor for new businesses that pop up in zip codes that are predominantly non-white. Let's correct that statement and say, and this is the truth as far as my perspective and opinion is, Google has abandoned the human audit factor for new businesses that pop up in any zip code. They have stopped having humans audit anything on the first touch for a long time now. The only time that you're going to get a human audit is when you're going down that multi-step path of whatever it is. Is it trying to get a suspended listing reinstated? Well, you are going to submit a reinstatement form, and then it's going to go to a human. Unfortunately, it's going, in my experience, it's going to be a human that is not very well versed in the sort of guidelines and processes and procedures. And you usually have to do that ping pong match a little bit back and forth until you get your case escalated to the next level up, to that human that is going to be able to, in this example, reinstate your listing as long as you're doing everything right, following the guidelines, etc. That same approach, that same analogy or example I just gave applies to any of these other situations that we've already mentioned. Reporting a fake listing, reporting fake reviews, etc., etc. All right. Any other thoughts on that one, or shall we move on past that theory? I love that theory, by the way, but they're not discriminating against non-whites. They're just discriminating against anyone that's not going to blindly pay for their advertising. Totally different topic. Anyway, all right, let's get to the next one. Okay, let me share my screen. This is about the challenge in, sorry, let me share my screen and go to this next one. Okay, so as far as legit, I didn't think that was that difficult. They send the postcard to you and you had to verify it. So they're saying, well, it's difficult to get a listing verified because it's a lot to set up a listing according to Google's guidelines. You have to have signs visible on the exterior, interior, photos, etc., etc. Take a first stab at it, Frank. Is it hard to get a listing verified?
Well, I understand. I don't think it's that difficult in general, but I understand the frustration because I've dealt with this with one of my contractors that is a service area business, which means, the customers don't come to his office, for the work to be done. But a lot of his, and this is where Google kind of applies their own guidelines and rules inconsistently. You see businesses, I mean, this would apply to appliance repair. You might have appliance repair companies that have entered their address, and yet they appear in the Google profile, in the Google Maps listings with their address, which can help them rank better. And then you're doing things the right way and you're not adding your address. I mean, in general, for appliance repair, for most appliance repair companies, you shouldn't have your address prominently displayed. I mean, you have to enter your address, but you'll make it be known that you're a service area business. So you shouldn't, the signage and everything, it shouldn't come into play. At least I don't think so. It didn't in the past.
Yeah, I think that, look, I understand where this person was coming from when they're saying, hey, it's hard to get a listing verified. If you really sit down and you really if you approach this aspect of your business the way that you would approach any other aspect of your business, that you're really taking it seriously. It's not hard because you're going to set aside the time. You're going to learn. You're going to do research. You're going to educate yourself, or you're going to identify somebody that has that level of expertise that you don't, you choose. You have this DIY or DFY, do it yourself or done for you sort of option in a lot of things that you're going to do in your business and in life. So are you going to take the time to learn how to do something the right way? Or are you going to find somebody that already knows how to do something the right way, has the experience and the track record of doing something the right way, and taking either of those paths? It's going to be hard if you just kind of take that approach where you're like throwing stuff against the wall and see if it sticks. If you're going to create the listing and you don't even know what the rules are, what the parameters are for what you're creating, then yeah, it's going to be hard. But I would say that treat it like a serious asset for your business. I see a lot that there's not enough importance sort of applied or applied to certain things. It's not easy. I mean, that's why people like Frank and myself, make a living off of being professional marketers. I mean, we've been doing it for years. We've had to educate ourselves. We have to stay at the cutting edge, just like appliance repair technicians, business owners, et cetera. You guys have had to, really put in the work and the time and build that experience and that skill set, and you have to stay on top of it. It's not that it's hard to get verified. I think that it's that, it's not being taken as seriously as, in my opinion, it is. And I think that's all I have to say about that one.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in here really quick, just touching base on the Google verification with the signage and stuff. Alex, I went through that, what was that, probably 6 months ago now, when Google wanted the show, I had to do the whole video tour to show the inside office, all the signage, work vehicles, blah, 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 to prove that that was my location of work, even though I am a service area service. Like, I didn't do any in-shop work. It was literally just an office for our office staff at the time. And reached out to Alex right away, and he kind of walked me through all the steps and got in touch with Google. And it was still a hassle, but as he stated, as long as you take it as a serious thing to do, it is pretty easy to go over with, as long as you do have the office. I can't imagine if I didn't, but then I wouldn't have the address there, I guess. So just one of those things that, and since then, I think I've had to go through 2 more verification processes already that I've had to consult with Alex for. So they're cracking down on the wrong people. But it does seem to become more frequent with the more legitimate owners. And then I know probably 20 of those lead people in London that haven't even had a single verification process brought to them. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, it's so in your experience, it sounds like it is a situation where they're not cracking down on others, but across the board, I want to say that there is nothing going on where Google is cracking down on legitimate businesses more than they're cracking down on spam listings. That's just not the case. There is no preference, there is no targeting. As Frank's put it out there, it's an algorithm. It's kind of random. But it's funny that you bring that up, Bo, because that is the next one. It was anonymized, but hey, I think you're going to be all right with it, Bo. Bo was asking around multiple verifications. Like, he has experienced the need to re-verify his business multiple times throughout the year. Frank, why does that happen? Why do verifications get triggered?
I'm hearing about bulk verifications, but I haven't really experienced it with my clients. So this is a bit new to me. It could be that they're targeting certain industries more than others. I'm not really sure. Like, I know locksmiths, they don't have the best reputation as far as spam listings. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going after them. But how often are you getting asked, Bo? I mean, has this been going on for more than a year, or
3 times within the last 6 or 7 months?
Okay.
Yeah. So I can speak to this because I work with Bo's business, and I'm the one who's gotten them reinstated. So a couple things. So Frank touched on it. There are certain business categories. So your Google business profile, you have a primary category, you have secondary categories. So there are certain business categories that are considered like high risk. Locksmiths are one of them. I believe that appliance repair is one that gets algorithmically sort of a closer eye than others. Garage door repair is another. So there's that. There are the more I don't want to say high risk, but there's like there are the business categories that are sort of elevated to more scrutiny with the algorithm. And then there are certain changes going on. One of the re-verifications that Bo went through is because we changed the address. He moved into a new shop. The business profile has a registered address that Google knows. Whether you have cleared your address for the public eye or not, there's a registered address attached to every Google business profile. And if you change the address, that's one of the #1 flags for re-verification. Changing your business name is also a higher, like a higher frequency or a higher level priority, if you will, flag for re-verification. And then some of the other more critical or important pieces of business information, like service area, phone number. Changing those are going to make it much more likely to be flagged for re-verification. And then also it's just random. Bobby's business. By the way, I'm sitting here at Bobby's new office. He's having a grand opening this weekend, and just randomly his business got suspended. We didn't do any changes. I still have no idea why. But yeah, so there's that. There's like sort of the high scrutiny sort of categories and areas of the profile. There is changes that are made, and then also, there could be a competitor, or there could be an owner of a spam listing that has, told Google, hey, this listing is, breaking a rule. There's somebody that could have suggested an edit on your business profile. And then the next level to fighting fraudulent or fake listings beyond suggesting an edit is something called the redressal form. And that's another thing. Somebody could have filled out a redressal form against Bo's business or anybody's business that is getting multiple verifications flagged. So I kind of want to poll the room for those attending. I had a 30-ish minute sort of target in my mind, and we got about halfway through the topics that I had chosen. Does anybody? I'm thinking that it would be good to kind of shift gears, and I can always try to get Frank back, and we can take care of the other questions and sort of comments that I think are good to go over. Does anybody have any questions for Frank or myself on anything we've touched on already, or just any questions on this topic? Feel free to unmute yourselves and go for it.
What kind of large difference?
You can just speak up.
What kind of large difference are you going to have between going from a listing that is only a service area listing comparable to a listing that has a physical address? What kind of presence difference does that make in the Google world?
Frank, could you hear that? You want to take a first stab?
Sure. I think in general, it helps to have your address. I can't speak to appliance repair though, because I think by default, Google would view that as a service area business. So I'm not exactly sure. I'm really not. I mean, with my dentist, obviously you want to have, the brick and mortar address there for people to go there, but it's all about where the work is actually performed. If they're bringing things into the shop, then maybe you could make a case, but I don't know. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, so I have two thoughts on this. So first of all, just to clarify, Bobby's referring to what we would call a hybrid business. So there is a storefront. We're not talking about somebody who is trying to have an address and pretend that they have a storefront when they really don't serve customers there. We're talking about appliance repair, an appliance repair business that is by definition a service area business, but also has a storefront where customers can come during posted business hours and they can unannounced and they can conduct business. That would be considered a hybrid business. Bo's is like this also, where he has a storefront. So the first main difference that you're going to see, Bobby, is how your profile is viewed from the public eye looking in. So once you have an address shown, that highlight of the service area on the map, that goes away. So it shows the pin drop. So that right there is kind of just an inherent, there's an upside and there's a downside to it. So the downside would be that when somebody's glancing through and they don't see that service area business, maybe would they think that they have to bring stuff there? I don't know, but there is that visual change. And then the plus side to it is I suspect that it very well might help with rankings. And the reason why is because I think about the what's the right word? The evolution of the Google Business Profile system. It was originally built and developed for storefront businesses. And in Google's fashion, when they change the scope and focus of a product, they don't overhaul it from the ground up. They don't change the foundation of their code and their algorithm and whatnot. They add on. So because Google Local, I'll call it, the local maps area of Google was originally designed for storefront businesses. I believe that their algorithm was originally focused on the ranking and presence when there's an address present. And I am hypothesizing that when they've added on the functionality for a service area business, that they probably didn't adapt their algorithm as adequately to be able to have a business rank in that sort of whole radius. We do know through testing that it's about a 20-mile radius from the registered address that your business is eligible to show up when people are searching for what you offer and where you offer it. But that would be my thought, is that there's a slight possible disadvantage from the human's eye perspective, but there very well may be an advantage from the machine's eye, essentially the ability to rank. I don't know. What do you think, Frank? I mean, this is a hypothesis of mine. I have no factual backing for it.
It's anecdotal, but I mean, I'm seeing the same thing. Like the company I reported today they actually had 2 listings, both with addresses in their service area businesses. Everybody else was playing by the rules and they were further down on the map. There was no real geographic component to it as far as, I mean, I did just search for Denver, but I think that's valid. If you, I mean, that's a tricky one though. I mean, unless you for sure are having customers walk into your establishment, I would be very wary about doing that in the appliance repair space. But Alex, you know the space better than me.
Oh, no, I agree. I mean, follow the rules. Like the rules say that you cannot have your address shown publicly unless customers can show up unannounced during published business hours and conduct business with you. If you're running your business out of your house and people can show up and knock on the door of your house, as far as I interpret the guidelines and the rules, then technically you can have your address shown if you want to run your business that way. I've never heard of anybody that does, but yeah, either way. Frank, how are you feeling time-wise? I want to be respectful of your available time.
No, I'm good.
Cool.
I do have one follow-up question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So is it true that you have to have a brick and mortar store in order to be a Google guaranteed listing?
Ooh, Frank, do you know, this is Google local service ads is what we're talking about here. As far as I know, you need a Google business profile that is verified and live. And then to have the Google guaranteed badge, you need to go through a verification process, which involves background checks, insurance checks, business licensing checks. But I'm not aware of a requirement for it being a physical storefront. But there are those other requirements that, obviously you don't have if you're not a legitimate business. Yeah.
No, I mean, locksmiths can be Google guaranteed. So, and there's no way most of them would have a storefront. So I think that's right. I don't think you need to have a storefront to be Google guaranteed. If that's what the question was, I couldn't exactly hear it.
Cool. Hey, anybody else have any questions? By all means, feel free to jump in. Going, gone. All right, I'm going to shut down the recording. We're going to keep the room open, but thank you, Frank. And would you be willing to come back again and tackle the second half of these questions at some point in the future?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, this was the Appliance Repair Roundtable, first one of 2022. We will be back.
Thanks, Frank.
We will be back next month. They will be held the last Thursday of every month moving forward. And I am still open on the next topic. I have one that we might do, so I'm not going to announce it just yet. But by all means, please feel free to reach out to me if there are any particular topics that that you would like to be covered.